Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, welcome. I'm Ewan Spence. Hello, and we're doing a little bit more Spectrum gaming, streaming, YouTube, and videoing and looking back at some classic games and titles from the world of the ZX Spectrum with the very shiny light above my head. Nothing in front of me, still getting the ropes of this. Anyway, today the very first Spectrum game I had. Now, strictly speaking, the very first Spectrum game would be the Bat and Ball game that was on the New Horizons tape that came in the box of the ZX Spectrum. I'm actually now talking about the first actual standalone cassette game, which was bought for me. I think it has to be said. The first one I bought, I'd have to think about that one. And I will do for another time. But anyway, what we are going to be looking at now is, you ready for it? Gobble A Ghost, CDS Microsystems. We had a couple of early title releases for the ZX Spectrum, but eventually they didn't come out here. Now, there's a couple of things that you can tell from the cover here. There are three important areas which we will talk about before we hit to the game. The first one is it's blatantly obviously a Pac Man clone. Gobble A Ghost with just a slight difference in the icons and graphics, so it's not Namco's big arcade game spectacular, which is down my local youth club. But it was enough to let you know that it was Pac Man. It's Pac Man. Sadly, CDS Microsystems is not a game company you will have heard of. Didn't go into great stuff. Other companies have, that New Horizons tape I talked about there was from a company called Scion, who went on to do PDA, who developed operating systems, who sat inside every Nokia handset for good 5-10 years or so before the iPhone took over. So some companies did make it big out of the spectrum. CDS was not one of them. But the other important thing is that sitting right at the bottom of the cover, 16K. Now, when the Spectrum first came out, there were two variants of it. There was the 48K Spectrum at the astonishingly high price of 179.99, and that's astonishingly high. But it was still, half the price of the BBC computer. And although it had 48K, it was actually 64K of addressable memory space, 16K of it reserved for ROM and other bits and pieces. So the 16K Spectrum was a 32K machine, 16K RAM, 16K ROM. So it was basically 64 and 32. But they called them 48 and 16 because they're talking about what you could access, not what was completely addressable by that. Now, in that 16K of RAM, you had to have space for all your variables, your codes, you had to load in the programming, you had to also store the screen, which memory size took up about 5 or 6K in total. So your game weren't written. There wasn't a lot of space left. And the reason for this was to keep the price down even more. The 16K Spectrum was 129.99, making it one of the cheapest color computers on the market. The ZX81 had launched the year before, but it was a monochrome machine, and they dropped it down to 49.99 at the launch of the ZX Spectrum. So it's still out there. But 16K was still a big, massive jump up. That said, it's 81, 1K. Yep, so going up to 16, huge jump. 48K, how are you going to afford 48K? Nobody's ever going to need that much. Oh, bless. your word file doc is even empty is bigger than that. Anyway, Gobble A Ghost, based on the arcade machine. Now, in other videos of this, we have taken a trusty wired-in PlayStation controller and used that as my Kempston joystick. Can't do that on this one, and there's a simple reason: the Kempston joystick hadn't been invented in 1982. That's the third thing. This is a game from 1982, the year the Spectrum launched. Not many of them reached the shops. They didn't know how many to make. They didn't know if if it just be a couple of people that are doing it, and the focus was say the ZX81. In actual fact, they couldn't make them fast enough. There was a backlog, there was a waiting list on the Spectrum to get up to 400,000 units, 600,000 units the next year. A lot of that sort of get the computer, start doing stuff, and get some really interesting things. It comes out in 1983. That's when people really start to get to grips with the system. So the ones in 1982 were early run throughs. What's going to be useful, what's going to be and good at working. So we will get to all of them shortly. But for now, Gobble A Ghost. Right then. Okay, let's bring up the Spectrum. Da, da, da. And our classic load, which uh, oh look, for old time's sake, let's just do that on the emulator and get it completely wrong because it's using a PC. Yeah, Yeah, I don't have me. Screwed that up, didn't you? Well done. Just go for the drop down that nobody can see and just go for Gobble A Ghost. Fair enough. Now, I don't have the cassette inlay card, so I've got to try and work out what the controls are before I start dying. Okay, there's an up there. One is up. Yep, Q is down. Got it. So it must be something over the other side. Letters. Nope. No. There we go. Right. 0, 9, 1, and Q. Right, we're off. We're under. There's no other special keys or anything. And straight away, there will be a couple of things that you recognize. Let's just do one more game in full screen. And that is, yes, it's a clone of Pac Man, but it's using the actual Pac Man maze. It's not a changed maze. It is the one that you would see in the arcade game. And I think this is one of the things that appealed to me when I was growing up. And when I had this, because the original was close by in the youth club. This was it. This was what I could play down in the arcade on my home computer. Nowadays, I can see that there are a lot of problems with what's going on here. And let's just go through them. First of all, yeah, I've just eaten some ghosts. Actual classic Pac Man, the eyes would start heading back towards the center. Nope. An eaten ghost just pops up in the center. It just goes away straight away. The second one is what you've got there. You've got a line of ghosts following you. And they're all following at the same speed. Very occasionally, they will break away because there's a little bit of randomness in here. Now, one of the things that people didn't know at the time, and it's much more common knowledge now, is that Pac Man itself, each ghost had its own way of hunting through the maze, whether it would try and lead you, whether it would try and follow you, whether it would just stay away from you, or whether it would just kind of lurk and move randomly around one quarter of the board. Here, not so much. They have a tendency to follow you, but they don't necessarily follow the sort of logical rules that you would get on a Pac Man game, which means that the strategy that you have nowadays to get you big high scores on Pac Man, which is to know the sort of pattern of the ghosts and memorize the trip around the board to get the dots without staying out of the way, that doesn't work here. You're kind of on your own, which in a way makes it a little bit more interesting to play, because it is not that ghost movement that's hardwired into me. You're not expecting Blinky and Dinky and Tipsy and Lala and Po and whatever they call the ghosts to actually travel through in a certain order. It just, yeah, it's that's the way the ghosts go. Now, where are we going now? Oh, I'm thinking. And of course, you do get a classic stuck in the middle. Right, okay. Another game. Let's just go back to big game. There we go. Yep, there we go. I'm still here. Right. So now we're going to follow the So now we are going to follow the Pac Man path, because for some reason my headphones decided to cut off there. Yes, we would like to have another game. Thank you very much. And right there, dead. That's not meant to happen in actual Pac Man. Okay, that puts me off now. Then it didn't. You know, nowadays, if you finish the maze, and if I stop talking and focus, maybe I might actually be able to do that one of these times. The Pac Man arcade game had the interstitials, the cutscenes, the ghosts being chased across the screen. You don't have that. It just refills the dots and says carry on and try and beat your high score. Neither do you have, underneath the ghost's home, do you have the fruit that gives you extra points, your cherries, your oranges, your bananas, and they would normally be sitting there. You don't have that just now. So are you gonna see? Look, in classic Pac Man, that would have quite easily, with somebody trying to head me off to the next junction, would have allowed me to take them off. But because they're all following me, I'm not going to turn for the score. I'm going to turn for the score down here. They're going through. Why are they going through the side? There we go. Maze flashes. No cutscene. Just refill the dots. and that's it. There's not much here. But again, you're talking about a game that probably fills up 8K of storage. 8,000 characters. So, can you nowadays program a functional game with just 8K? Now remember, you don't have any SDKs or anything to play around with. You don't have any graphical assist or tools. You've just got to write everything you hear and see, apart from what's given to you by the operating system, in 8K. And remember, you're doing this probably on a pre-release machine or a machine that's just come out in the shops, and you've got about 2 weeks to program it, because that's how long you've got to get the game into the stores and on sale. There's your challenge. That's the challenge you get. Gobble A Ghost. It is a Pac Man clone from the dawn of the ZX Spectrum. It holds a lovely place in my heart. It's bright and colourful. It uses the Spectrum's colour attributes to good effect. It's as without having the cold arcade game decrypted and understood, which you do have nowadays, for things like the ghost patterns and everything. This is actually a pretty good effort. Brand new system. Unknown audience. Who's going to be buying the ZX Spectrum? Nobody really knows. But at the end of the day, CDS managed to turn out a pretty good Munchie Maze game. And this kicked it off. This is one of the things that just started me on I Play Games. So, there's a lot of emotional love for this game, even though playing it now, I can see so many issues with it. And I also know that the Spectrum is able to do so much more and will do so much more over the next 37 years and counting. Quickly does the maths in his head. If I've got that wrong, somebody will address me in the comments. So, is it perfect? No. Is it a great starting place? Very, very much so. Does it get boring after about 10 minutes? To modern sensibilities, I suppose it does. But I know that I played this for absolutely hours. So, it does what it says on the tin. You get to gobble a ghost. They never mentioned the word Pac Man. Everybody knows what they were meaning. And that there is the start of your ZX Spectrum gaming, or at least it's the start of mine. Questions, comments, thoughts, recommendations, suggestions, leave them all in the comments. I will get to them shortly. I'm Ewan Spence. That has been CDS Microsystems Gobble A Ghost. Thanks very much for watching. Time for me to go AFK, and I'll catch you on another stream. Ta-ra for now.